The hum of the engines fills the cabin like a low, uneasy heartbeat. Passengers glance over their shoulders, some curious, others pretending not to notice. Elias stands near the aisle, ticket still in his hand, eyes calm but unwavering. The pilot, Cole, adjusts his cap, his tone clipped. Cole. "Sir, you might be more comfortable back in coach." The words drop like ice. A flight attendant shifts awkwardly, eyes darting between them. Elias doesn't move. Elias, quietly. Comfort's a matter of respect, not location. Cole hesitates. He wasn't expecting an answer that didn't tremble. Around them, the air thickens, whispers spreading faster than turbulence. A woman in first class coughs, the kind of cough meant to fill silence that's suddenly too heavy. Narration. For years, Elias learned to smile through smaller humiliations. But this was a public lesson waiting to unfold. Cole. "Sir, I'm not asking twice." Elias. "And I'm not moving twice for the same kind of man." The attendant flinches. Somewhere in the back, a phone camera clicks. One sound, and suddenly the scene isn't private anymore. Cole straightens, sensing the invisible lens that's now part of this cabin's air. Narration. Sometimes justice begins when people start recording what they once ignored. The captain walks away stiffly, but his confidence falters in his steps. Elias finally sits, not as a man defying rules, but one reminding everyone what dignity looks like when it refuses to apologize. Across the aisle, a passenger lowers his gaze, whispering to his wife. "He doesn't even look angry," she answers softly. That's what makes him dangerous. The engines roar louder, or maybe for the first time, everyone can just hear the silence between them. The air inside the cabin feels colder now, though no one has adjusted the temperature. Elias sits quietly, his ticket resting on his knee like proof of a truth no one wants to accept. The flight attendant steps closer, her voice polished with courtesy, but her tone carrying a sting too sharp to miss. "Sir, you might have read your ticket wrong," she says, smiling with the kind of politeness that hides disbelief. Elias looks up, his expression calm but unyielding. "It says 2A, he replies. "I've read it just fine." The attendant lets out a small, practiced laugh. "Of course, but sometimes these upgrades get misplaced. Happens all the time." Her words glide over the moment, light and casual, but the intent beneath them is heavy. A few passengers glance over, pretending not to see what's happening, their eyes returning to their glasses of champagne as though silence could protect them from guilt. In that stillness, Elias doesn't argue. He doesn't raise his voice or explain who he is. His dignity speaks louder than any defense could. The narration beneath the moment is quiet but clear. Racism doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it hides behind kindness, beneath the mask of professionalism and fake courtesy. The attendant leaves to check with the captain, but her steps quicken as she walks away. Around Elias, discomfort brews, soft, invisible, but undeniable. For the first time, the people around him begin to feel the weight of their stillness. When she returns, her smile has faded. Beneath her professional tone lingers something new, a tremor of realization, or perhaps fear. The polite disbelief that once tried to shrink him now feels small itself, swallowed by the quiet power of the man who never raised his voice. The door to the cockpit opens with a hiss, and Captain Cole steps out, tall, composed, his cap angled perfectly. The gold stripes on his sleeves catch the cabin light, glinting like authority itself. His expression is steady, almost kind, but the calm in his voice carries weight that leaves no room for question. "What seems to be the issue?" he asks, eyes already set on Elias. The attendant straightens, her tone light but uneasy. "Just a seating confusion, Captain. Passenger claims this is his seat." Cole's gaze lingers on Elias longer than it should, studying him, not the ticket in his hand. "Let's get him seated in coach," he says simply. No raised voice, no insult. Just a line sharp enough to cut through the entire cabin. For a moment, no one moves. The passengers watch, the quiet kind of watching, the one filled with complicity. A woman lowers her eyes to her phone. A man clears his throat and looks out the window. No one speaks. Elias doesn't either. He just exhales slowly, the sound soft but steady. "Sir," he says after a pause, his voice calm. "I'm seated exactly where I belong." Cole tilts his head, a faint smile pulling at his lip. "I'm sure you think that." The silence that follows feels different now, heavier, almost brittle. The attendant shifts, unsure whose side she's standing on anymore. Elias's composure fills the space, quiet but immovable. Inside, Cole feels it, not anger, but something smaller. A flicker of uncertainty he quickly buries beneath the discipline of his uniform. The plane hums beneath their feet, but the air feels still. Authority has spoken, yet somehow control has started to slip, and everyone can feel it. The engines begin their low growl, a steady hum that fills the silence left hanging in the cabin. Passengers settle, belts click, but every sound feels forced, rehearsed almost. The earlier tension hasn't vanished. It's just been buried under the noise of routine. Captain Cole returns to the cockpit without another glance, satisfied that order has been restored. Or at least that's what he tells himself. Elias remains still in seat 2A. His hands rest calmly on his lap, ticket folded neatly beside him. From the corner of his eye, he catches a flight attendant stealing a look, curiosity mixed with guilt. He doesn't meet her gaze. Some lessons, he knows, are taught better in silence. The intercom crackles. "Cabin crew, prepare for takeoff." Cole's voice echoes through the speakers, steady and confident. But inside the cockpit, his fingers tap the yoke, a rhythm of unease. Something about the young man in 2A lingers in his mind. Maybe it's the poise, the quiet certainty, the kind of calm only power can afford. As the plane begins to roll down the runway, Elias reaches into his pocket. The letter's edge grazes his fingers, the corporate seal still visible through the fold. He doesn't pull it out yet. Timing matters. Dignity, he's learned, doesn't rush. Outside, city lights fade beneath the clouds. Inside, tension climbs higher than altitude. Passengers whisper softly, about nothing and everything at once. A woman finally murmurs, "He handled that well." Her companion just nods, uneasy. Elias looks out the window, watching the horizon blur into darkness. The plane rises, and with it the balance of power begins to shift. No one knows yet that the man they tried to move is the one who owns the very sky they're flying through. The engines settled into a steady drone, that kind of noise that eats into thought and fills the space where words should be. Elias sat upright, his shoulders squared but his spirit quietly folding in on itself. Around him, the cabin felt alive. Laughter, chatter, the soft clinking of glasses, all sounds he could hear, but none meant for him. The attendants floated past like rehearsed ghosts, their smiles skipping over him, landing only where the ticket said, "Deserving." "Would you like another drink, sir?" one asked the man beside him. Her tone was sweet, practiced. Then her eyes brushed over Elias, a flicker of recognition or maybe discomfort, before moving on. Nothing said, yet everything spoken. He adjusted his cufflink, the one his mother gave him, a small gesture of belonging, maybe defiance. The hum of the cabin wrapped around him tighter, turning every ignored second into a slow burn. In his mind, her voice returned, calm, certain. "They don't have to shout, baby. The quiet ones do more damage." The man beside him laughed at a joke told by another across the aisle. Elias smiled faintly, not at the joke, but at the irony of invisibility. As the plane began its slow climb, a flight attendant leaned over, brushing against his arm by accident. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Too quick, too careful. Elias nodded gently, though she was already gone. He looked out the window, watching clouds merge into night. It wasn't anger that filled him, not yet. Just the hollow weight of being unseen, like shouting into a storm that never echoes back. Inside that silence, something small shifted. Not in them, but in him. The beginning of remembering his own worth. The cabin light dimmed, fading into that soft gold that made everything look fragile. Elias leaned back, his eyes half open but his mind wide awake. Somewhere between the hum of the engines and the rustle of uniforms, her voice returned, low even. The way she spoke when the world tried to silence her. You keep your chin up, Eli. Even when they look through you. He could still see her standing by the doorway years ago in her navy blue flight uniform. The same airline? The same cold smiles. They said she was too emotional with passengers. What they meant was, she spoke back when someone called her the help. He remembers the day she came home without her badge. The silence around her was heavier than grief. She didn't cry. She just folded the uniform, slow and careful, like she was putting away a piece of herself. "Don't hate them," she'd said. "They want that. You hold your ground, quiet, steady. Let them see what they lost." Now, sitting in the same seat she once served, Elias could almost smell her perfume, lavender and jet fuel. He ran his fingers over the cufflinks she gave him. Her initials were faint now, rubbed out from years of holding on too tight. A flight attendant paused beside him. "Sir, are you?" She started, but something in his eyes stopped her. Not anger, not pride, just history. He nodded once. "I'm fine," but inside he wasn't. Inside, her dismissal still echoed, not as pain, but as unfinished business. As the plane leveled out, Elias whispered under his breath, "You wore wings before they knew what flight meant." And somewhere, in memory or mercy, she whispered back, "Then fly for both of us." The cockpit was quiet except for the soft hum of autopilot. Cole leaned back, tapping the control panel with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "You ever notice," he began, "how they're everywhere now? All these kids trying to act like they belong in our seats." His tone was light, almost joking, but it carried that sting, the kind that hid behind laughter. The co-pilot, Daniels, forced a chuckle. It came out thin. "Yeah, guess times are changing," he said, eyes fixed ahead. Cole laughed louder, shaking his head. "Changing, please. Flying takes instinct. You can't train instinct. You either have it or you don't. Some people just..." He stopped, watching a flight attendant of color pass by through the glass. "Don't!" Daniels shifted in his seat. "That's Elias's crew today, right? The new operations lead?" Cole smirked. "Owner's pet project. Some charity case with a pilot's badge." The words hung there, sharp and unsteady. Daniels swallowed. For a second, he saw his own reflection in the window, pale, uncomfortable, smaller than he felt yesterday. The laughter that once glued the room together now cracked like old paint. "Maybe he earned it," Daniels murmured. Cole shot him a look. "Don't start getting soft. You know how this works, we fly. They follow." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was hollow. Daniels's hands tightened on the throttle, not from fear, but from something slower, deeper, shame maybe. Outside, clouds drifted past, calm and unaware. Cole chuckled again, quieter this time, but the sound no longer landed. It echoed back at him, empty, uncertain. For the first time, Daniels didn't laugh, and the cockpit, once filled with arrogance, began to feel smaller than ever. ChatGPT said the cabin lights dimmed to a steady hum, the kind that usually meant peace. But tonight, peace was pretending. The flight attendant, Jenna, scrolled through the manifest, eyes half-tired, until one name caught her breath. Mr. Elias Ward, owner's representative. The letters flickered like static. For a second, she thought it was a mistake. Then she saw him, calm, seated in coach, silent as the truth itself. Her hand trembled against the tablet. "Cole," she whispered into the intercom. "You might want to check passenger updates." Cole's voice crackled back, lazy. "What is it this time? Another allergy meal or a celebrity?" Her pause said everything. "No, it's him." The silence that followed was thick, metallic. Then a low curse. "Don't play games, Jenna." "I'm not." She turned, watching Elias adjust his seatbelt with quiet ease. "He's here." "In coach." Cole's chuckle was forced. "Then let him stay where he belongs." Jenna didn't respond. The weight in her chest said this was no ordinary flight anymore. Minutes passed before the cockpit door clicked open. Cole stepped out, smoothing his uniform, every motion too rehearsed. Passengers barely noticed, but Jenna did. She saw the flicker in his eyes, that mix of disbelief and dread. Elias looked up slowly, his expression unreadable. "Captain Cole," he said evenly. "Good to finally meet you in person." Cole froze, that title hanging between them like a verdict. Elias didn't raise his voice. "Funny thing about altitude," he murmured. "It shows you who's above who and who's just pretending." For the first time all night, Cole didn't have an answer. The intercom crackled again, the sound of static breaking. The cabin had gone quiet long before Elias stood up. Even the hum of the engines seemed to hesitate, as if the air itself was listening. He held a folded letter, edges worn from waiting too long. When he began walking down the aisle, no one moved. Not even the ones who had laughed earlier. Jenna's voice broke the stillness. "Mr. Ward, maybe sit, please." "The captain?" "I know," Elias said softly. "The captain will come to me." The weight in his tone made her step back. Cole emerged seconds later, his authority sharp, his composure cracking. "Sir, passengers aren't allowed near the cockpit. Please return to your seat." Elias unfolded the letter, slow, deliberate. "This says otherwise." Cole frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," Elias said, meeting his eyes, "I sign your checks." A ripple of breath moved through the cabin. Someone's fork clinked against a plate. Someone whispered, "He owns the airline?" Cole's throat tightened. His uniform suddenly looked too small for the man inside it. "You think this changes anything?" Elias smiled faintly, not out of pride, but exhaustion. "It changes everything you thought you controlled." For a moment, silence pressed down again. Then Elias added, almost like a whisper to himself, "My mother once walked this same aisle. She was told she didn't belong up front. I'm just finishing her flight." Cole's jaw locked, his voice dropping. "You planned this?" "No," Elias replied. "You did, the moment you made her invisible." The captain's authority broke right there, not with shouting, but in the way his gaze dropped first. The seatbelt light blinked on, soft and warning, as if even the plane knew power had changed hands. Someone's phone camera clicked before anyone spoke. The red light blinked quietly, catching the scene the world was about to see. Elias stood steady in the aisle, the folded letter still in his hand. Cole's face was drained of color. A man trying to stand taller while everything beneath him gave way. "You can't record this," he snapped. Voice cracking slightly, a passenger muttered, "You recorded him with your eyes the whole flight." Cole turned, startled by how fast the cabin shifted. The attendants looked away now, even Jenna, who once laughed along. Her voice came thin, barely audible. "Captain, maybe you should sit." He stared at her like she'd betrayed him. "You're siding with him now?" "No," she whispered, "just with what's right." Elias didn't gloat. He didn't even look at the phones. His voice was calm, the kind that carried more weight than anger ever could. "I didn't come here to humiliate you, Captain. I came here to see if the sky still felt the same after everything you took from it." Cole swallowed hard. "You don't understand." "I understand enough," Elias said. "You thought uniforms and skin told the story? But the story changed the moment I stopped asking for permission to exist." The red recording light blinked again. Cole looked smaller now, not because of the lens, but because truth had stripped him down to something fragile. Outside, the sun was setting, gold over gray, light folding into shadow. Elias turned back to his seat as the intercom crackled awkwardly. The captain's voice never returned. In that quiet descent, justice didn't scream. It simply breathed, soft, steady, and final, while the sky watched them both fall. The landing gear screeched against the tarmac, a sound sharper than any word spoken that night. The cabin shuddered, not from turbulence, but from the weight of what had been revealed. Elias didn't move right away. He waited, eyes closed, steadying the heartbeat that had carried too many silences. Cole's voice came through the intercom, thin and unsure. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome home." It cracked mid-sentence, swallowed by the murmur of passengers reaching for their phones. whispering truths caught on camera. Jenna stood near the exit, her hands trembling as she gathered courage. "Mr. Ward," she said softly, "I didn't know—" Elias opened his eyes. "You didn't have to. You just had to see me." Her lip quivered, but she nodded, eyes glistening. Behind her, Cole stepped out of the cockpit. The arrogance that once filled his uniform had drained away, leaving only the man underneath. Smaller, exposed. "Elias," he muttered, as if saying his name might fix something. Elias didn't stop walking. "You called me kid not long ago," he said quietly. "Now you remember my name." Cole's throat tightened. "I was doing my job." "No," Elias said, pausing at the door. "You were protecting a system that forgot what a man looks like when he doesn't fit your picture." The passengers fell silent again. Every camera, every gaze, they all pointed at Truth standing between two men. Elias stepped out first. The air outside was cold but clean, unfiltered. Behind him, the captain stared at the ground, the gold stripes on his sleeve gleaming faintly under the airport lights, symbols of pride that had just lost their shine. No applause followed. Justice had already landed. The phone hadn't rung in 4 days. Cole sat by the window staring at the tarmac beyond his apartment, planes taking off, pilots moving on, life continuing without him. The uniform hung on the chair, ironed, untouched. Every morning he still woke at 4:30, muscle memory refusing to forget what pride had built. A knock broke the silence. Jenna's voice came through the door. "You should read it," she said softly, sliding an envelope under. It came through the company. Cole hesitated before picking it up. The handwriting was clean, deliberate. Elias Ward. He opened it slowly. "Captain Cole, I won't be pursuing anything further. You've lost enough already. I hope someday you see that silence isn't weakness. It's restraint." "Elias," the paper shook in his hand. He leaned back, the words echoing louder than any accusation could. Jenna stepped in quietly. "He could have ruined you publicly. He didn't." Cole nodded, eyes unfocused. "That's what makes it worse. People are talking," she added. "The airline's letting you go." "They said it—" Jenna folded her arms, not unkindly. "He didn't want revenge. He wanted you to feel this." Cole looked at the letter again, the calm handwriting, the lack of anger. "He wrote less than a page," he whispered, and somehow it ended everything. Outside, another plane ascended, steady, unbothered. Cole watched it until it vanished, the sound fading into the same quiet that now lived inside him.